All right. Well, you picked it, Ronald. Let's talk a little bit about this week's required viewing. I can't wait to get into this one with you guys.
Yeah, so my pick for this week was for the required blah. My pick for the required viewing last week was The Serpent and the Rainbow. The Serpent and the Rainbow? The Serpent and the
That's
Rainbow.
Serpent and the Rainbow. Yes.
Yeah, based on a book, and some of the material was taken into this fictitious story that is
Yeah. Very lightly based on a book. I have a feeling.
very little. Yeah,
Based especially on like the last act. I really don't think any of that
yeah,
is in a true story. But
yeah. So that was my pick, and I guess one of the things I didn't realize was it's a little harder to get than I expected. And I apologize for that,
oh, really? It
guys.
was on Peacock for free.
It was on Peacock. Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Me either.
Peacock is. I've
Uh,
had
uh,
praise from Peacock lately.
there was like 2 minutes of commercials you had to sit through at the beginning, and then
Oh,
it was no commercials after that. So
really?
yeah.
Okay. Well, it is on Peacock.
I
Um,
unless Peacock doesn't have like subscriptions under it the way other
no,
services do.
no.
It's not like Amazon.
Now
Yeah, it's just through Peacock. Yeah.
I do know that the high end one makes things available that aren't available to the standard one. So
I would find it strange if I was paying for the high end Peacock because I really don't think I get bargain birds across the board.
okay, Brian Burns. But yeah, what would you guys think about the movie?
Well, let's talk a little bit about what it is and who made it. Like Wes Craven
Oh yeah, Wes
is
Craven.
the guy, and I was realizing we've talked about a lot of Wes Craven on this show because we did the Scream series, we did every one of those movies on this show, and we've done the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which had 3 directed by old Wes.
Yeah.
Correct? 3 directed by Wes, or just 2? He directed 1 and 3, and then New Nightmare, or did he not direct 3?
He didn't direct 3. Chuck Russell
Okay,
did.
so just 1 and New Nightmare.
New Nightmare.
So yeah, in that sense, this Wes Craven is one of our guys too, I guess. But I do
Yeah.
think there's something about the quality that he brings to a film that you can feel even in a film that has dated aspects and feels very of its time like this one. But it's
Yeah.
basically like you said, it's a true story, or it's based on the true story, and it's like a real grounded attempt to show you what real life voodoo zombie. Kind of there's urban legends about zombies that are based on voodoo, Haitian voodoo, and this is sort of a true story of a very white man, a man so white that his nickname is White. They call him Blanc in this, but it's very much a white guy amongst a bunch of black people, and there's like often he's scared of them just because they're black. It seems. Maybe that was
Yes.
just my reading of it, but I felt like the optics of the time were very strange. That often at times Haitian culture and just street culture is presented as though it is scary to Bill Pullman.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah.
often he seems to be like the butt of the joke of this thing. So as he gets deeper
Yeah.
into this like Haitian voodoo conspiracy, he seems a little bit like it's almost like Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China, or like Bruce Campbell to some extent. That seeing him get knocked around and getting the piss knocked out of him is kind of part of the movie's mission statement. I even thought his color scheme was very Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead. He had like the brown pants and the blue shirt, and I wondered if that was Wes Craven like doing a little nod, because Bill Pullman
Yeah.
definitely seems like you're supposed to sort of see him as the hero, but you're also supposed to see that he's, there's something kind of whiny and punchable about him. Or maybe that was just me seeing it that way.
He has one of the best yells I've ever heard in a film. Like he yells quite a bit. And, I think that was one thing that I was super afraid of is like, how racist will this feel? Watching something. And I guess this is a half compliment. Given the time and the opportunity that Wes could have had to make this more racist, it is only a cursory level of racist versus, like racism of the time versus like somebody being like, let's make them look crazy. It doesn't feel like that funny enough. And I think I was expecting that a little more. It felt like they were more like, white man, stop coming back to this situation. And he kept coming back and it got worse and worse and worse. Whereas when I watched it when I was a kid, I was like, all these things are happening to him, but I'd forgotten that he left like 3 times and kept coming back. Did they nail his dick?
They put a spike through his scrotum.
Spike through a scrotum.
I like how they had to. I don't know if that was Bill Pullman's contract or if that's just male, like like whatever paranoia or something that feeds into the script. But they had to really hammer it home. No pun intended. They had to really hammer it home that he was still functioning. Like the narration said, "I was alive and intact." And then like a later scene, he's sitting there talking to the woman, and he's saying, "So it's just my scrotum, right?"
It was just a hole in the scrotum. Is what he said.
He's like, you got to put that in that script.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Bill Pullman doesn't get his nuts smashed.
I don't think that I realized when I was a kid how heightened Bill Pullman's performance was. Like when I was a kid, I was just like, this is how I would be if I were scared. I'd be a bumbling kind of guy. But watching it now, he is so, I mean, and I'm not even talking about like, if you watch Spaceballs, he's really silly in that. It's not even the same tone as Spaceballs. It's a little more.
You're saying, wait. You're saying that Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow doesn't have the same tone as Mel Brooks's Spaceballs? This statement
do not.
merits further inspection.
But
no, I know what you mean. Is that I thought about his character in Ruthless
heightened.
People. I don't know if you know Ruthless People, but in that he plays like the blonde, like frosted tips kind of surfer dude, kind of bimbo guy, and that. There were shades of that in this character. He was playing certain moments, like almost with like a dumb look on his face, And I really wonder how much that was just them going for intensity and Bill Pullman being a gifted actor, but more at home with like light comic acting than like intense acting, and how much that was the intention. Like, did you guys think it was the intention to sort of show, like one of those things where halfway through the horror movie you realize that the protagonist is kind of a dupe?
Yeah, has to be, man.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know that I really kind of like thought about that watching this, and I realized that I think I too watched this when I was like really young, and I didn't remember a lot of this movie. So like rewatching it, I don't think I watched watching it this time. I don't feel like I liked it as much as I thought I did, or thought I remembered liking it, and it may have just simply been that like I was like in love with Wes Craven at that point, and like was just probably loving everything that he did. Like even just in this movie,
even
like
Deadly Friend,
Christy Swanson. Yo, I have that on VHS, one room over, John.
Is it a basketball that she uses to kill?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I love that movie. Not even joking. But yeah, that
might be a future required viewing.
Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, shocker. There's even like things in this movie that really kind of like feel like nods to his prior movies or movies, that, he had a hand in making, even to that chair, sequence at the end, like that is totally Shocker-esque, or maybe Shocker was after that. I can't remember which came first, but
it's also Nightmare on Elm Street-esque because it's like a nightmare element. My favorite part of the chair part, Steve, was when it's like chasing him and it like almost comes in the door and it kind of like leans in the door and then goes like
and backs up.
Yeah, the chair's like, oh, you.
It's like, yeah, that's what I thought. Go in there. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like I did still enjoy it. And I mean, I do think it's kind of like a crazy story, especially if some of it, what the pieces of it that are based on truth, and like
the first 5 minutes are probably true.
Probably, or just the idea that, of what this chemical or this powder was, that it is legitimately like something that they still study and that is known to have a similar effect on humans. But I don't know, like I just felt like it really kind of came off to me as like kind of silly at times, and I'm not speaking just to Bill Pullman's performance. Like I didn't really, I actually came out of it thinking like I kind of forget about Bill Pullman in that era. Yeah, a lot of times, like you said, like Ruthless People or Spaceballs is probably the most common one, but like this
Independence Day is the one.
Independence Day is a few years later, but I mean that 80s era Bill Pullman, like he's like a stud. Like he's tall and attractive, and like they really kind of play up kind of some moments in the movie, like the romance between them is kind of weird, but like I kind of forget it in terms of that era. Like he was one of the it guys at that time, to see him in a a Wes Craven kind of horror thriller, and especially some of the stuff he does in the movie, and you know, some of the imagery in the movie, like, you know, the sequence when he's kind of like in the coffin and the blood's kind of coming up from beneath him and kind of covering his, that's some pretty cool stuff for like a star to be doing in like a horror movie, because it's him, you know, you can see it's him doing that sequence. And you know, just some cool imagery in the movie for sure. And I mean, the whole voodoo element is definitely very creepy and, you know, spooky, and mixing that with like the civil unrest that the country's going through at that time. I think it just like everything is so heightened in the movie that you know, it makes it entertaining, and the whole time you're kind of just feeling like it feels kind of natural. Like what you're watching to me feels like you're just watching people, like, you know, beyond some of the special effects and things when it gets into some of those sequences. But like so much of it being filmed on location and things like that really kind of lends itself to really kind of feeling immersive, especially because I didn't really remember a lot about the movie. So within the first 10 minutes, it's like, it's very like ingrained in the culture, like when they're there, and, you know, talking about the different kinds of magic or the different kinds of voodoo, and, you know, Celine, is that what was that his name? Celine? Yeah. Versus, you know, the other voodoo, the voodoo doctor, like, I don't know, just like that balance of stuff. I didn't remember any of that from the movie, honestly. Like I only really remembered the imagery of Bill Pullman in the casket, and like that blood sequence and the chair sequence. I like basically the last like 30 minutes is what I remembered. But yeah, I don't know.
Just a quick note. I just looked on Wikipedia. It was 1986, Ruthless People, 1987, Spaceballs, 1988, this.
Right. Like,
so who was Bill Pullman at this point? I think it's interesting that you're pointing out his kind of leading man quality, Steve. I think you're right, but I also think he's one of those guys who plays the quote unquote Baxter character, you know, in the romantic comedy, because when he does a leading man, he has a slightly off. There's something about him, like you, and oftentimes those guys who are like leading man-ish, like in mainstream movies, they'll have a type that they play. Oh, he plays the dumb guy, or he plays like this. The you know, the president in Independence Day is like the solid kind of dad vibe or something that Bill Pullman can give. And then the romantic comedy, the jilted lover type, like he plays that guy. If that guy's gonna get to play the action lead in a movie, right, it's probably going to be a genre movie or a horror movie or something where they're like, well, you know what? We can't get Harrison Ford. We can't get Kurt Russell, but we can get Bill Pullman, and he can stand there and put his chin out, and he looks pretty convincing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe that's why you see those types of actors doing this kind of like you said, really going for it in a genre role. I also don't doubt that Bill Pullman could have seen Bruce Campbell getting blood sprayed on him in Evil Dead and thought that looks fun, because some of that stuff in this movie really did feel like it's going for that kind of, it's like a mixture of a nightmare sequence from an Elm Street movie and something else. And even the way the climax ends up being this physical brawl, but with mystical overtones, it reminded me of the end of either a Candyman movie or a Freddy movie or something.
Totally.
It had that feel. Yeah. And you almost see the template that could have turned into a series around this, the idea of these kind of voodoo priests who could keep coming back. And I got to say, what happens to that voodoo priest at the end was so grisly and like just awful to look at, that it felt, you know, that was disturbing. There was some disturbing imagery in this. I even think the kind of bride character that pops up in a couple of situations, and ripping her face apart and stuff, that was pretty creepy. Also, ends on a freeze frame. Can't beat a movie that ends on a freeze frame. It's got to be a sudden freeze frame, Ronald. It can't be a freeze frame that feels like you're building up to it. It has to be sudden and a little bit weird.
Yeah. It's kind of a similar situation. Like Steve, like I remember the confrontation, and I don't think I thought, you know, it's crazy. I remember elements of what the man was saying, like, you know, that he was taunting, as he was punching him. Like, I remembered that, but I didn't remember that it came from that movie. And you're right. Toward the end, that last 10 minutes or so got so cartoonish. Like it kind of was what I needed. And I think as a kid, you know what? It's strange. Like I thought of this as a horror film, but watching it feels like a thriller with horror elements more than I watched this time. I kind of took it in like that. It felt very but like very lived in, like you were saying, like very lived in, to the point where I was like, why does this feel so authentic? I don't know. Like, even if some of the story elements of the voodoo didn't feel, whatever, however you feel about voodoo and its cultural representation is one thing, but the townspeople, the interactions with them, the regular looking people that they had just kind of being there present, like when he's panicking, he kind of just he bumps into the guy and he's like, no, 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 don't touch me. I don't want anything to do with it.
No, I made a note, Ronald. That might be my favorite moment in the thing, because that guy was so like, don't put that on me. Don't put that on me. Like, yes. I'm just walking down the street. You're cursed. You're doomed. Everybody here knows it. No, that scene was good. Like, that was him wandering around, not knowing what's happened to him, and seeing him kind of in the role of, the guy we've seen before, because that's kind of the urban legend that's at the heart of this like grounded voodoo idea of zombies, which is someone dies in a village and then someone says, I saw them working in the field in this neighboring village, and then it's like the suggestion is there's somebody that has like workers that are all people under their control, right. And that maybe they were people that were drugged and killed, quote unquote, killed in this way and then brought back. If you add in mystical dark art stuff, then it's like a little bit more nefarious, the idea that this person has kind of enslaved people to work for them, and there's a little bit of both going on in this movie, the idea that there's a mystical control, but also that it's based on this drug. So yeah, I think that this movie kind of like plays into stereotypes of voodoo stuff, but I also think it does present it kind of to what you were getting at, Ronald. I think like I would agree this, like, it does actually try to show you the way that voodoo is part of a religion and a culture that goes beyond the kind of black magic that is the heart of this story. So I think that in some ways it's one of those, like you said at the very beginning, for its time, this portrayal is actually a little bit more nuanced than you might think it is. That doesn't mean that it holds up in 2022 and that it holds up as a cultural depiction. And again, I think if you told this story today, you just wouldn't put a white man at the center of it. If you wanted to tell a story about voodoo and Haitian culture, and they were actually shooting in Haiti, and then I think they had to leave because of political unrest, and they finished in the Dominican Republic. But one thing I wanted to say too, I learned from looking at Wikipedia, is that this movie was 98 minutes, and it was a brisk 98 minutes. It really kind of moved along. The original edit was 184 minutes.
Oh my God.
And then it's like, oh, we took out some stuff to make it move a little faster. And it's like, yeah, no shit, you did. I can't imagine the 3-hour version of this movie. Maybe you would have just gotten more character stuff, but still, it seems like that would have been a huge mistake for this to feel long. I really enjoy when a movie like this is under 100 minutes. That's a sign that it might be, a painless watch. So.